Good morning and welcome to Open Mic. I am Andy Mack in for the vacationing Pat Kelly. And this morning we're going to be talking about the New Hampshire art scene with Michael James Toomey, a very uncommon artist in New Hampshire, has seen a considerable amount of success. New Hampshire is one of these places that when you look around, there is an amazing art scene, first of all, in New Hampshire, whether you're looking at the work of the League of New Hampshire Craftsmen. If you go to the Currier Art Museum, if you're local, at the Belknap Mill Art Gallery, all over the place, there are great artists of every imaginable type. And if there's one thing that New Hampshire has, they have some amazing landscape artists. And I can tell you without question that that Toomey is not a landscape artist. Got his start, or back in the day, was a front man in a metal band, and he brings that sort of intensity to the acrylics that he does, portraits that are often filled with dichotomy, filled with all sorts of contrast, and the man has garnered a lot of recognition for his work. His clients include Amnesty International. The actress Glenn Close owns a Toomey painting. So he is with us this morning to talk about the New Hampshire art scene and how we got into it. And Toomey, good morning.
Good morning, Eddie. How you doing?
Just fine. Just fine. This is fun, and it's quite an honor filling in for Pat today. Belly up to the mic a little bit more, if you would, so folks can hear you.
Sure.
And so I guess my first question to you is, how did you get started in all this? Now, we chatted a little bit off air, and my impression was, let's see, that it was rock and roll first, but you say it was paint. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely.
It's always good to talk to you. Like most kids, in junior high and high school, I was interested in art. I tended to do traditional kind of stuff. It worked out pretty well. I was all set, slated to go to art school. Matter of fact, I took some courses when I was in high school at the Museum of Fine Arts Early Acceptance Program. So things were going to go that way. And when I was a junior, somebody gave me a guitar. I liked it. And all the things that came along with it, you become something other than yourself. You're a regular guy in a crowd of people, and all of a sudden you slap on a guitar and a black leather jacket and pick up a pack of cigarettes, and you become something completely different. And so I went that way and did that for about 10 years. And when that kind of fell off the rails, I went into retail and had a fairly successful career as a regional manager for a small franchise. And in 2006, when the economy collapsed, the company I worked for went out of business. And being 42 years old, I didn't know specifically what to do. And trying to find a job at that age that paid well was incredibly difficult. So I entered an art contest, won some money, and thought this may be a good way of making a living. Yeah.
Pretty cool. It is funny that I recall, certainly when I was younger, I ran a mobile disc jockey business.
Sure.
So I was in the music business in that respect. And though it is not as creative, perhaps, as being in a band, there's that whole thing of there's these external pressures, grown-ups that tell us, grown-ups compared to us.
I still have grown-ups telling me to get a job.
Yeah, get a real job,
Yeah.
right? That's the whole,
Yeah,
that seems to be the stanza. They say, come on, get a real job, and then we try that, and it's like, not working so much.
No, it is amazing how things happen. Some of us, you get forced into this little box, and you start to buy into the whole kind of, oh, I need this, I need that, I need this. And then at some point in time, at least for me, what I realized is that, and it's an overused phrase, but you work to own stuff, but at a certain time, the stuff owns you. I mean, and you don't need it. I mean, it's so much of the stress and the pressure and everything else is self-imposed. I mean, there are certain things you need to do. You need a place to live, you need food, you need a source of income. But so much of that is just garbage. I mean, you don't really need it, and in the art business, it's very much like the music business. I mean, it is one of these jobs where it is nobody wants you till everybody wants you. You know, you're only as good as your last show. You know, if you're not doing something immediately, oh, you must be just hanging around. And it is a job. I mean, a lot of people think you spend, oh, it's great. You get up and you go downstairs and you paint all day long. And it isn't. It's like any other occupation. You spend most of your time trying to either fill orders or get new shows or get new commissions and paperwork and websites and all these things that go on that plus the fact that you need to be in front of people all the time. It's you know, it's a brand issue. You can't just release a piece every month and think people are going to come find it. You got to get in front of people all the time. So you spend very little time painting. You spend much more time doing what everybody else does in the world.
Sure, keeping the wheels turning.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have to. But this is one of the things that I appreciate about artists, that I respect about artists, and for instance, what you're doing, is that it takes some courage to do this to me. You have to, I get the impression that to go on this angle, because it is not necessarily one that is going to make you rich, or, you know, you can hope for that, but you certainly have to have a different life view, and to be able to go along that creative angle and let loose to some of those things. I think it must be very satisfying, but working that balance has got to be a challenge as well. You're right. You've got to still make the mortgage payments. You've got to keep the electrical on and pay all the rest of the bills, make the car payments. And tell me a little bit about that. How, as an artist, do you work that artistic balance? Because you want to be able to let loose and make your artistic expression on canvas. At the same time, like so many artists, sometimes it's a balancing act of, okay, well, but what is commercially viable? Sometimes, you know, I mean, some of the work that you do is extremely intense. It is just not conventional at all. We've talked in the past, just you and I,
Yeah.
have talked about the whole concept of people that shop for paintings to put over their sofa.
Yeah.
And just talk about that balance a little bit.
I think it's twofold. The first part of it is this: is that you know and this is just my opinion, but I tend to agree with Picasso, who I don't really love his work, but some of the stuff that he said I kind of identify with. And you know, Picasso said that painting is or art is, painting is an act of war. Art's basically an act of war. I'm paraphrasing, I'm butchering it, and I kind of agree with that. You know, to be successful at anything, you have to pick and choose what you're going to sacrifice. If you're going to be a good husband and a good father, there are certain things that career-wise you can't do. Right? If you're going to be a great statesman, if you're going to be a great business leader, there are certain things you sacrifice to get to that point. And I think that's true with art. You know, you have to make a decision that this is what you're going to do. And if you're going to do it, you want to do it with the same passion that with an intent. It's tough to explain, but I guess what I'm saying here is that you need to be able to put yourself into it, and that's a very tough thing to do when you have the constraints of the outside world on you. You know, in my case, I have two lines of work. I have the stuff that's the Innocence, I call the Innocence series, which tends to be a lot more, I won't say controversial, but a little bit more intense. It deals in very dark images. Concepts are layered upon concept, so that hopefully the longer the viewer looks at the piece, the more they can pull out of it. Yet it's still it still should be a personal experience. And then there's the celebrity line, the rock star portraits. And those are basically just rock star portraits. And I don't delude myself. People buy them, and they do really well. They buy them because of the person that's painted, not the person who's painting it. They're buying a John Lennon portrait from me because it's John Lennon. Mm-hmm. And that, over time, and I'm not complaining about it. It's a great business, don't get me wrong. But over time, that becomes kind of soulless. So with the concept pieces, though, it's you walk that fine line. You want to create something that won't shock somebody, but give them an emotional feeling. They either like it, they hate it. It reminds them of somebody they know, or it reminds them of an experience that they've been through. You want to make art personal. You don't want it to match the drapes. And that can be tough because you're dealing in an industry which is based upon, like every other industry, whether it's you're selling tires or you're selling stocks, you know. You've got to market it, and it's got to meet a general public. So it's a tough balancing act.
So, are there any suggestions that you can make for people that are, for fellow artists that are trying to work this balance?
Be prepared to sacrifice.
Mm.
And understand that no one's going to understand what you're going through. It's funny, we live in a society that is so tied up with everything we do is based upon somebody's creative abilities or an idea. From the apps on your phone to the soundtracks that you listen to the stories you read to the television. There's somebody someplace sitting in a little hole someplace coming up with those designs, coming up with those ideas. Yet it's the least appreciated, right? I mean, I don't want my son to be an artist. I don't want my son to be a writer. I don't want my son to be a musician. They won't make any money. Oh, that's not really a job. Yet, even sitting in the studio, you look around the technology here, and everything here is based upon those things. They're all icon oriented, but no one pays attention to it. Yet most people spend the majority of their day staring at these things.
Oh, that's an interesting perspective. One of the things I want to note here to me is that, this is radio, and trying to describe your works by just saying that they're intense. There's certainly, obviously, a lot more detail here. And we've actually done a couple of things here. If you look at the WEMJ Facebook page, which is facebook.com/1490WEMJ, you will see a link to Toomey's business. It is Londonderry Fine Art. And if you go onto the site, you can browse a great number of works that Toomey has created and get some feeling for the art that has been created. And if you want to do that in person, the other thing that we've done is, Toomey, you've brought in 3 artworks that we are displaying at the WEMJ studios here at 51 Church Street at the old Laconia Police Station. We've got them right in the lobby here. So it's something that as you run around this week, even if you can't make it here today, come down and visit us during the day and take a look at these works that he's got up in the studio. I think one of the things that's always impressed me about that truly impresses me about your work is this business of, I don't see any brushstrokes. How do you do that?
One of my first jobs was working for a couple big galleries back in my rock and roll days. My day gig, it was pretty good. At night I'm a singer. In the daytime, I worked for Martin Lawrence or Wentworth galleries, and these were I won't say fairly, they were very, very successful art galleries, right, and publishing houses. And but the majority of the work they showed was serography or lithography, which is very detailed, hand-done silk screens and stone lithographs, and they're very, very smooth. So, I come across this artist by the name of Patrick Nagel, who nobody knows of now, but he defined the look of women in the 1980s. Matter of fact, if you look at the Duran Duran cover of Rio, that's his work. And it was flawless. The lines were clean, they were dramatic, and the colors were flat, and I mean flat. You could still see that it was serography. I mean, you could still see the texture of the screening, but they were so flat, and they just absorbed the light, and they were just they just floored me. And then I was introduced to Warhol, and I had known a little bit about Warhol, but what everybody knows about Warhol, oh, soup can, ooh, that's cliche and stuff. But when you look at his work too is flat, and he used serography. And so in my travels, I went to work for another company, Celebrity Fine Art, and there was a guy the artist that they published used to work for Warhol, a guy by the name of John O'Connor. And he did stuff very similar to Warhol, almost exact, because he had been one of the screen artists for Warhol. Warhol used to, at that point in the 80s, very little was actually done. It was kind of like, okay, his factory did it, or for better terms, whatever. His assistants did the work, and he would sign off on it. And I looked at his stuff, and his stuff was flat too. And the only thing that was any sort of texture was he used to throw diamond dust on them to make it work. So then, I get out of that business. I go into regular retail. And then when I go back into the art field, I didn't have the ability to do that kind of, because of financial situations, to do serography, to do screens. It's a very expensive. You really you have to know what you're going to do. I mean, it's not something simple. So I mimicked it the best way I could, which was very, very thin paint over and over and over again to build up the density of the color, but to keep it to keep it flat, so it had that kind of feel to it. Because I almost want, again, it wasn't my intent, but now that I look back at the stuff, especially the concept-driven pieces, you almost, black and white is great because black and white adds authority. Like if you look at the old World War II films of the concentration camps, if you see them in color, they don't look as authentic. They don't look as real. They don't look as stark as the black and white, right? So for the combination of the flatness and the black and white, it gives the images a certain authority that they wouldn't have. And you've seen some of the color work I've done, and they're nice pieces and all, but they don't have the same kind of, you don't get the same kind of visceral reaction to them that you do is that.
And I think that's the thing that so strikes me about the work is that, and the lines are so beautiful, and without the brush marks, I think there's something that when you step back away from it, it does start to look a little bit like a very powerful black and white photograph, and then it becomes, just for me, I mean, I'm an art enthusiast, not a expert or aficionado. I just love it, and so from a distance, black and white photo. Up close, it becomes abstract. It's really interesting. We are talking with artist Michael James Toomey. This is 1490 WEMJ. Andy Mack in for the vacationing Pat Kelly this morning on this edition of Open Mic. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about some interesting art shows that Toomey has been involved with, and maybe a little bit of rock and roll. Open Mic. This is 1490 WEMJ.
Want to get lunch? I'll meet you at Hector's. Hector's Fine Food and Spirits downtown Laconia is a great place to enjoy great tastes. And Hector's can match your timeline. Whether you want a leisurely lunch to catch up with your friends or need your food to arrive just as you sit down, you can call ahead, place your order, and Hector's will have it ready at your table so you can relax and enjoy your meal and your companions. Lunchtime at Hector's has so many great taste possibilities. Classic Hector's sandwiches, like their Turkey Rachel, Laconia Jack, the Grilled Chicken Ranch, the Classic Reuben, or the Grilled Vegetarian. Hector's Angus beef burgers are hearty and juicy. Explore a light luncheon entree like fish and chips, homemade crab cakes, and the quiche of the day. When you say hello to Hector's, you say hello to good taste. So if your bunch is ready for a tasty lunch, meet them at Hector's. Hector's Fine Food and Spirits in downtown Laconia. Give them a call and order off their online menu at hectorslaconia.com.
Starcraft Boats. One of the oldest and most trusted names in boating are calling your name at Thurston's Marina. If you ever went boating when you were younger, chances are you've been in a Starcraft. They've been family owned and building great boats for over 100 years. Thurston's Marina, Route 3, Weirs Beach Bridge has the full line of Starcraft fiberglass runabouts and deck boats, as well as the complete pontoon boat lineup. Starcraft's legendary line of fishing boats are at Thurston's too. Often the choice of the seasoned fisherman, Starcraft aluminum fishing boats are a safe bet for successful angling. Special needs? Thurston's will get you the boat you desire. Need service on your present boat? They'll get you in and out fast and running right. Thurston's rents boats too. 25-foot pontoon boats for those wanting the cruising experience, and 20-foot deck boats for skiing and tubing. Their boats are new and come with all safety equipment and a lake chart. Daily and long-term rentals are Thurston's specialty. Thurston's Marina, Route 3, Weirs Beach Bridge. Go online and click rentals at thurstonsmarina.com.
Open Mic on 1490 WEMJ is brought to you in part by Guilford Home Center on Guilford East Drive. Your home for decks, patios, retaining walls, and pressure-treated lumber. See them online at guilfordhomecenter.com.
Forest Service Diesel Clean plus Cetane Boost is a complete injector cleaner and performance improver made just for diesels that cleans injectors, boosts cetane, and lubricates fuel injection components. To get the benefits of today's cleaner burning fuels, new technology is required. The Max HP formula of Diesel Clean restores lost power, smooths rough running engines, and improves fuel economy up to 8%. You can't get peak diesel performance from an additive made for both gas and diesel. Get Diesel Clean at auto and farm and ranch stores nationwide.
This is a guided meditation on parenting. Find a relaxed position to let go of the time you left your daughter's blouse in the dryer too long and it shrunk 4 sizes, or when you donated her private diary to the public library. Deep breaths.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Now, back to Open Mic on 1490 WEMJ. To be on today's show, call 527-1490. That's 527-1490. And like us on Facebook, where the conversation is always on. Now, here's EMJ's Pat Kelly.
And this is Open Mic on 1490 WEMJ. Good morning. It's Andy Mack in for the vacationing Pat Kelly. With us this morning, New Hampshire artist Michael James Toomey, and we are talking about the New Hampshire art scene. Also in the studio, we have Dave Emerson, known to so many around the region as Mr. News. Good morning, Dave.
I was I was Mr. News in Concord more than I was here in Laconia.
Just as a point of clarification.
During the 70s and 80s. But I did swap my disc jockey career more or less for news and or public affairs from about 85, 86 through when I exited the business, 16, 17 years later.
Well, we've spent quite a bit of time together.
Yes.
In the past.
Yes,
and
we have.
It's just
Good
wonderful
times,
to.
too.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful.
And I'm glad to be
in the
back.
studio with us.
I'm glad to have this opportunity to, sort of climb back behind a microphone.
And you've got a show coming up tomorrow.
Tomorrow with
as
Kat,
we
the Belknap,
continue vacation week.
Yeah, Belknap County, Merrimack County Community Action Program is going to be in on Wednesday, and then I'm back on Friday with some of the entrepreneurs of downtown Laconia.
Cool. That's going to be great.
Looking forward to it. This is a fascinating discussion about art, of which I know enough to get myself in trouble about by being proved wrong.
Well, go ahead. Get yourself in trouble.
But I was interested in the styles that Mr. Toomey was talking about, and how many there are. So many of them.
Well, one of the driving, you come across certain artists, and one of the artists which I love is Kandinsky, and he wrote a book a long time ago. I think it's called the Search for Spirituality in Modern Art, or something along those lines. But he makes a brilliant point, and he discusses the different styles of art, And one of his points is that, you can't be a primitive unless you were born in the time of the primitives. You can't be an impressionist unless you were born in the time of the impressionists. If you try to replicate that work, you're just replicating it. You're just copying it. But you should build off of it. So I was heavily influenced by artists that had a graphic background. As I said, Patrick Nagel, Andy Warhol, Roy Lichtenstein.
Warhol, is again a fascinating study. But and you mentioned what you would call
the soup can.
Yeah, the soup can. But he's so much more than that.
Yeah, but I think even the soup can.
But he seems like an illustrator as much as he was.
He's an ad man, and all these guys are ad men. And if you study modern advertising, it all goes back to Bernays. Edward Bernays, and this whole idea of being able to.
See, I thought he just did a sauce. I'm sorry,
but Bernays was Freud's nephew, right? And he gets hooked up with Woodrow Wilson, and Woodrow Wilson has him start basically the office of propaganda, right? To sell the First World War. Well,
the Uncle Sam portrait.
No, but along those lines. Yeah. And the long and the short of it is he starts up his own basically advertising company, and he's the guy responsible mostly for get women to start smoking. In the Easter Day Parade in the 1930s or 20s, when it was looked down upon for women to smoke, he decides, he gets a bunch of his friends' daughters who were debutantes to march for women's rights. And at a certain point, these young debutantes pull out cigarettes, and then all of a sudden they're called freedom.
Shocking.
Yeah. But what it did is it brought cigarettes to a new market. These guys came out of that background. But when you look at, my impression of, like, we'll just use the soup cans because everybody knows it. This is just my thinking on it. Whatever Warhol's intent is, I don't know. But my thinking on it is that, you think about the guy who designed that Campbell soup can. That is an icon. That says, when you look at that can, that white and that red and that little gold face in there, it says a lot about America.
Right.
People get something out of it when there's a feeling of warmth, there's a feeling of home, there's a feeling of mom,
and
right?
it hasn't changed to this day.
Yeah, but it goes even deeper than that. It symbolizes something that goes beyond words. When you see it, you feel a certain way. Well, to me, that's what art really should do, right? It shouldn't match the drapes. It shouldn't, that's cute. It should evoke something in you that puts you in a place and time, either past or what you think you want to be in the future.
But it's so individualistic too. I mean, some people will look at a portrait or look at a Chagall work or look at, maybe even look at one of your works and say,
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
I have people cock their heads and look at me like I'm some sort of...
Some people get it, some people don't. And some people just accept it for what it is, right?
I don't think you I think accept it for what it is the lazy way, the lazy man's way out of everything. Because you have a reaction to everything. You either like or you dislike. There is no I'm just going to accept it, right? There are things in life you cannot change, but that's your choice. That's your choice to deal with it. There are certain, if you get ill from a disease, you can't change that. You may not want to, you have to go along with that, but that's your choice. You follow me? But in everyday life, you can't, you have a reaction. When someone walks in and you look at them, you immediately form an opinion based upon, it's not just as it is. It's you either like them or dislike them.
Right.
That will change as you talk to the person. Right. But you get what I'm saying?
If I had to pick an artist that I find most appealing, and it's Rockwood, Norman Rockwood.
Rockwell?
Rockwell.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and his his Americana stuff from the 30s, 40s, his magazine covers for Saturday Evening Post, and the work that he did from the New England, Arlington, Vermont is where he lived, and the residents of Arlington, Vermont were his muses.
But the beauty or the genius of Norman Rockwell is that they are images that everybody identified with.
Right.
They are images that evoke all that is good in home, hearth, and the world. Right.
In fantasy America, sometimes.
That's
too.
my point.
Yeah.
It's what everybody achieved for. That's what they wanted. They wanted a Thanksgiving dinner where everybody was sitting down around the table happy, right? When in reality, is that what happens? So it does do exactly what I was stating earlier. It brings you to a place or what you want to achieve, or it does something inside you that moves you. And that's the relevant. It's not. A lot of artists get caught up in the technicality of this is the way you paint this. This is the right type of paint you're supposed to use. This is, oh, you're using a computer. Oh, no, you can't use computers or whatever the deal is. It doesn't matter. Who cares how the cake is made? If you eat the cake and it's delicious, does it really matter? Whether or not the pan was buttered 3 times or it was buttered once?
There's your soundbite of the day right there.
That's the Julia Child, right? But
yeah. No, that's your soundbite of the day right there. I mean, it comes down to the artist is creating for themselves and the beholder to a degree,
right.
And
whoever the beholder might be,
and to evoke an emotion. And it doesn't have to be, gee, I love it, I'd like to put it over the sofa. It might be, my take has always been, that, well, we talk about this a lot in radio, Dave, that a person that's on the air, if they've evoked some sort of an emotion, they've done their job. And certainly for the artist, it strikes me like it's that even more so.
Right.
That if someone says, oh, that's beautiful, that's really something. Or if they become really angry, or if they're disturbed by looking at a painting, I'm sorry, but in my opinion, that's success as well.
That's an emotion that's
Let's
acceptable.
talk about that a little bit more when we come back. I want to get some more stories from you to me about shows and people's reaction to your work when we get back in just a few here. This is Open Mic. Andy Mack in for Pat Kelly today on 1490 WEMJ, talking the New Hampshire art scene with New Hampshire artist Michael James Toomey of Londonderry Fine Art. You can find his website at the EMJ Facebook page, facebook.com/1490 WEMJ. This is Open Mic.
1490 WEMJ brings NH1 television news to the radio. 6 o'clock every weeknight. If you can't make it home in time from work to watch it on television, we've got NH1 News right here. NH1 News is New Hampshire in every way, with the news stories that matter to you and the latest technology bringing you weather that you can plan your day around. When you can't watch the 6 o'clock news on WBIN TV, NH1 News is yours on 1490 WEMJ.
There is little or no question that summertime is party time, or that Taylor Rental in Belmont is your local resource for all things rental. And that includes tents, any size for any occasion, wherever you need to set it up, whether it's a wedding, reception, or something on a smaller scale, for a group of friends like a birthday or anniversary, or for no reason at all, other than you're just in the mood to have a party. And why not?
Taylor Rental, if you need it, call.
And how about all the stuff to put in it? Tables, chairs, dance floor, bridal arches, linen goods, sterling place settings, crystal stemware. The list here is practically endless. Whatever you need for whatever the occasion can be accommodated, including karaoke if you want to let your hair down just a bit. And our experienced event planners are here to help you start to finish. Taylor Rental, not just in the rental business, they define it. Route 3 Belmont, just south of the Belknap Mall.
Taylor Rental, if you need it, call.
Open Mic on 1490 WEMJ, a service of Guilford True Value on Guilford East Drive, your home for seed, feed, hardware, and more. Behind every project is a True Value.
Now, Market Watch.
I'm Chris Maurer, CNBC Business Radio. Stocks are set to bounce back from last session's declines. Traders are keeping a close watch on the Greek debt crisis as Eurozone leaders gather in Brussels today for an emergency summit. The question is whether Athens will be able to hammer out a deal with its creditors. The U.S. trade gap widened in May as exports dropped. That was because of a strong dollar, which makes U.S. goods more expensive overseas. Even so, the deficit was less than analysts had expected. Oil prices are stabilizing after yesterday's sell-off. Crude fell nearly 8% on Monday, the second biggest drop of the year. And your morning cup of joe at Starbucks just got a little more expensive. Beginning today, the coffee chain is hiking the price of some drinks from 5 to 20 cents. The higher prices come despite an 18% jump in company profits last quarter. Chris Maurer, CNBC Business Radio.
Have you had trouble with online dating? This is eHarmony founder Dr. Neil Clark Warren. We've created a new solution, EH Plus. EH Plus combines the personal attention of a matchmaker with eHarmony's extensive pool of great singles. EH Plus gives you hand-selected matches and freedom from being online. Get started today. Call 855-930-LOVE. That's 855-930-LOVE.
Wearing glasses with Crizal No Glare lenses can make a big difference in your vision because neither scratching desert sands nor the waves of a raging river can keep your lenses from giving you the clearest vision possible. For superior water, dust, scratch, and smudge resistance, choose Crizal. Plus, Crizal gives you 25 times more UV protection than not wearing glasses. Crizal, live life in the clear. Ask for them at your eye care professional or learn more at Crizal.com.
CBS News Update. The Iran nuclear talks go on, and they'll go on longer. Correspondent Margaret Brennan with the latest from Vienna.
Secretary of State John Kerry says he'll give Iran a few more days to negotiate what could be a potentially historic nuclear deal. But he still wants to get a comprehensive agreement to Congress this week in order to avoid stretching out the diplomacy, which would give skeptics more time to skewer it.
As for sticking points, there's one that's been tough to find compromise on so far.
One of the most difficult that's at the heart of this standoff is determining how much access weapons inspectors will get to any suspect nuclear sites, including those located on military installations, as well as getting Iran to allow weapons inspectors to question their top nuclear scientists.
The negotiations to limit Iran's nuclear ambitions have gone on now for nearly 2 years. CBS News Update, I'm Dave Barrett.
Now, back to Open Mic on 1490 WEMJ. To be on today's show, call 527-1490. That's 527-1490. And like us on Facebook, where the conversation is always on. Now, here's EMJ's Pat Kelly.
Good morning and welcome back to Open Mic on 1490 WEMJ. Andy Mack in for the vacationing Pat Kelly. Dave Emerson is going to be in tomorrow, and again later on this week I'm going to be returning as well on Thursday to talk to Mark Beauchesne from New Hampshire Fish and Game, and you can bet I'm going to be trying to extract fishing secrets from Mark. But right now talking with New Hampshire artist Michael James Toomey about the New Hampshire art scene. Michael Toomey creates some very intense artworks. If you want to take a look at those, we've got a link to his business, Londonderry Fine Art, up on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/1490WEMJ. The link is there, and you've got an opportunity to go through some of his online galleries. If you actually want to see some of his works in person, because they are really, it's pretty amazing work, in my humble opinion. We have 3 artworks of his at our studios at 51 Church Street, the old Laconia Police Station, right here in Laconia. Stop by. We'll have them up all week long. And Toomey, one of the things that I'd like you to talk about a little bit, past shows, and we were talking also with Dave Emerson, who's joined us in the studio this morning earlier, about the whole business of artwork to evoke a response. And can you talk a little bit about the responses that you've seen in some of the previous shows that you have been at?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me here again. It's
pleasure.
It's just a great opportunity. I think I told you the story. Actually, I know I've told you the story before, but it was like my second or third show, and it was in Boston. And that sounds big, but it was really one of these things where they had a bunch of artists come in and they were redoing Downtown Crossing. So where the old Filene's building was, they kind of set up a makeshift outside kind of cafe/storefronts. So I was in there one day, and like most people who start something new, you're never quite sure what the hell you're doing. So I had done, I think I only had like 2 or 3 of the concept pieces done at that time. One of them was a soldier with his wife, and another one was 3 kids behind barbed wire with train cars behind them. Now, the kids were just typical kids, and the barbed wire I had gotten the idea from a horse farm down the road from where I live. And the train cars were these old rusted cars that were sitting, were taken from these old rusty cars that had sitting on a old freight line out in Gardner, Mass. And I combined them, and it was told this little narrative, a fictional narrative. And so I called it The Ghost of the Warsaw Ghetto 2. Now, whenever you title something, you always get worried about what people's reaction was going to be, and what do I know? I'm a white guy from outside Boston, middle class family. What do I know about pain and suffering? So do I even have the right to title this, or even to do a piece dealing with that subject? In this case, the Holocaust. So I'm standing there, and people are looking at the celebrity portraits, and they're buying that, and things are great. And there's an elderly woman staring at this piece, and so I walk up to her, I ask how she's doing, and she literally had a tear in her eye. And at this point, I'm like, oh, crap, I screwed up. I don't mean to swear on the radio, sorry. But I thought, literally, I had screwed up. I had offended her, right? And she turns to me, and she pulls up her little small lady with this, like, one of those London fog coats, and she pulls up her arm, and on her arm is tattooed a series of numbers. And she looks at me and says, that could have been me. And at that point there, I figured that was a sign what I was doing was valid.
Wow.
Whatever else I had to do in my life, whether I made money or I didn't make money, to bring that issue or bring that kind of an issue of human injustice or the way that we treat people and how easy it is to go from having your neighbor be your neighbor for the sake of your own gain. Your neighbor becomes this subhuman thing that you feel you can do what you want with. And that was the driving force behind. At that point there, I figured no matter what I do, I still have to do those things, whether they sell those types of pieces, whether they sell or they don't sell. In my mind, it's the only option I have.
That woman's reaction was, pardon me, payment enough, justification enough for doing that.
Oh my God! You have no idea. I mean, it's one of those moments where like you don't, and it is Ask Andy. It is very tough to get me speechless.
Sure.
And I was just like, you don't know what to say, you know. I mean, and it also makes you question your own
humanity.
Yeah, and your own values and what you think is, because it is very tough. You know, we all that 20 minutes before you fall asleep at night, which is always the roughest time of day, where you go over everything in your life, where you try to be this one person, and then you step out the door, and because of the way the world works, you get forced into being something you don't like. And the beauty of being an artist is, and I don't think I've ever told you this, but the beauty of being an artist is this, is you have the option of walking away. You have the option of retreating into a world and expressing on canvas specifically what you think and what you feel. Right?
That's the point.
Yeah, and it's a luxury that you don't have in the outside. I think songwriters, to really good songwriters, have that ability. Right. You know, where they can write a narrative that says exactly what they're thinking at the time they're thinking it.
Yeah. Playwrights too.
Yeah, writers. Yeah, absolutely.
So to be able to get that kind of a reaction.
Yeah. Of course, you know, in true story, you know what? 3 shows later, up in Nashua, some woman walks by the same piece and goes, "Oh, that reminds me of my kids." So it just shows you how. But I think that has to
from the sublime to the ridiculous.
Yeah, but I also think that you know, it's a blessing in some ways, because it shows you that you know, people's view on stuff often dictates what their experiences are.
Mm.
Yeah, and here we are 70 years later, and still, you know, I mean, there are people that aren't even aware of what happened, you know, from the 1933s.
It's
to
an
the
interesting
1945s.
when the Soviet Union collapsed, all those records of the Nazi occupation were released for the first time in history, and they found that, you know, I remember reading this someplace where I was taught at least that around every corner was a Gestapo agent, right? But in reality, that wasn't true. There was only, for a town the size of, say, Nashua, right? There was maybe only a half a dozen Gestapo agents. It was the people themselves that were turning in other people for the benefit of themselves, right? I mean, it's not. And what really scared me, and look, and Andy knows this, right? There is nobody who's more patriotic than I am, in the sense that I love the fact that we're a democratic republic, not a democracy, but a democratic republic. Okay, I really honestly believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and religion or no religion, the 10 Commandments. You take those 20 little things, you put them together, and you can run a society pretty well. Okay, that's the way I look at it.
Good rules to live by,
yeah,
anyway.
Yeah. All right,
but expect people to try and break them too.
Yeah. But you know, But I was in a Walmart somewhere around 2004, 2005, and I'm walking through Walmart, and on their little screens is the head of Homeland Security talking about how if you see something, say something. And it immediately brought me back to that. Yeah. How far is it between, you know what, I like your job, I want your job, okay? I'm not as qualified to get your job, so if I mark you, you go, I take your place. And that kind of and it doesn't take much to get to that point. I don't know how we get on that subject, but
sadly, no,
it doesn't take that much to get to that point.
And it didn't then either, because of the fervor and the fever that was drummed into,
and the economic conditions, and the lack of education, and.
But one can also see that, you know, you're talking about, well, how can you really connect to that? But you have really sought a connection with that. It's clear, exactly.
It's personal because
just listening to you talk about that, about what you've studied and what you've learned about that whole situation and then how that comes out when you've got a paintbrush in your hand. Pretty amazing.
But it's also
process.
important to keep it moving, pay it forward.
But
Don't
see,
ever-
the most important, not to interrupt you, but the most important thing in the world is and I had somebody do it for me. And if you think back, you probably both had somebody do it for you. At some point in time, somebody somewhere who you look to, you either respect or is a member, is an authority, or is just somebody that you hang around with, says to you the right thing at the right time. And it changes you in only 1 degree in that moment. But you extrapolate that down 10 years, and that 1 degree has changed the entire course of your life, right?
Absolutely.
So if I say to when my kids were young, if I said to my kid, that's a person, 10 years down the line, it'll be a person. If I say to my kid, and use a racial slur, then 10 years down the line, that's still going to be a person. You get what I'm saying to you?
Right.
And that's where the key is. It's not these big, overwhelming agendas. It's the small little things you can do to change the direction in someone's life.
That's you're taught by your parents the language of your home, of your country.
That's true.
And you're also taught to carry the baggage of your parents too, because they.
I think that's the one thing that's lost lost these days is that
Right.
the accountability factor.
Right.
You were accountable.
If you're taught to be appreciative, if you're taught to be open-minded, if you're taught to be, inclusive, you are, because that's the way you learn. That's the way you become something. And if you're taught the opposite, if you're taught to be afraid of that what you don't know about, or people that have oddly shaped eyes, or different colored skin, or
The old saying,
practice.
children learn what they live.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. Exactly.
Right.
You just summed up what I said.
And you
3
summed
words.
up what I did. So, thank you very much, Andy.
That's why you're a much smarter
This
man
is-
than me. That's why you're a much smarter man.
We need more time. This is what we need. We need more time. This is a very intense conversation, and I'm really enjoying it. Hope you are too, folks. This is Open Mic on 1490 WEMJ. This morning, talking with Dave Emerson, who is going to be holding a show here tomorrow as Pat Kelly is on vacation. My name is Andy Mack, and again in the studio this morning, New Hampshire artist Michael James Toomey of Londonderry Fine Art. You can see some of his work online. Go to the WEMJ Facebook page. We've got a link up there. And we're going to be back in just a couple of minutes here. And we will wrap up today's edition of Open Mic. Thank you so much for joining us. This is 1490 WEMJ.
Handmade rugs didn't originate. We're not that old. Handmade rugs are from the Middle East, they're from the Far East, and they've been brought over and been taught to what are now Americans.
Jody Sleeper from American Cottage in Guilford, which specializes in beautiful handmade rugs and custom home furnishings and decor.
Hand-knotted rugs, which everybody calls Oriental or Persian, which is a generic term but very false. They're hand-knotted. They're made on looms. They come from traditional designs. They're from dozens of generations. No one can do it like the Nepalese. No one can do it like the people I've met in Kathmandu. They're Hindu. They're the most precious, faithful people you've ever met in your life. While they're working, their kids are going to school, they're going to the dentist, they're having hot lunch, and we know them. And I feel as close to them as I do to the people who make our furniture here.
For stunning handmade rugs and custom home furnishings and gifts, visit American Cottage, just off Route 11 at 9 Guilford East Drive, Guilford. Look for the big log sign.
Summer's in full swing, and so is the Summer Bonus Tag Sale. Hi, Tom Canton from Canton Chevrolet in Laconia, announcing the Canton Summer Bonus Tag Sale. It couldn't be more simple. Choose your vehicle, apply rebates and discounts, and then you choose between purchase or lease bonus cash. 0% up to 72 months is also available. Bonus tags are hanging on the mirrors ready for selection. Canton Summer Bonus Tag Sale on virtually every model we sell, like Silverado, Equinox, Cruise, Malibu, Trax. The vehicle you want, we have a deal. How about saving up to $10,000 on your next new Silverado? GM Financial is approving 98% of our submitted credit applications. We can get you financed when others have failed. Good credit or bad, we're financing people and delivering low rates. Our goal is for 100% approvals. No fancy, fast-talking disclaimer. Canton Chevrolet, featuring great selection, lower payments, no out-of-pocket expense at delivery, and the best buying experience. All at no extra charge. Canton Chevrolet, Union Avenue, Laconia. Canton Chevrolet, find new roads.
Canton
We now return to WEMJ's Open Mic with Pat Kelly. Call or email Pat now. Pat's email is pkelly@1490wemj.com. Or you can call us now at 527-1490. Now, live from EMJ's new studios at the NH1 Media Center in downtown Laconia. Here's Pat Kelly.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Andy Mack in for the vacationing Pat Kelly on today's Open Mic. New Hampshire artist Michael James Toomey of Londonderry Fine Art. We're talking about the New Hampshire art scene, and we've been getting into some pretty intense stuff, obviously stuff that drives you with your work. Now, if people are looking for your work, you've got there one of the places that you hang, I guess that is the term, that your artworks hang, is you do a lot of work with the Nashua Artists Association, and they have a gallery. Can you talk about that and some of their upcoming shows?
Sure. You know what, the Nashua Artists Association, and I'm not really officially affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form. I just met a couple of the directors of it, and they're just great people, and they needed some help, so I helped them out. But they have a great little gallery on 30 Temple Street in Nashua called the Art Hub, and it's usually open most days from 11 to 6. And, it's quite a diverse group of artists. There are some glass artists, some really good jewelry artists, as well as traditional painters and photographers. But it's a really nice place. They also have a great show coming up in Nashua, I think on the 17th and 18th, or whatever weekend falls with those two dates, in Greeley Park in Nashua. And that's a show that's been around for 61 years.
Greeley Park show is a big show.
Oh, that's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and the work that's there is just it's some of it's just jaw dropping.
Worth a drive.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Plus, it's a beautiful part of town. I mean, some of the it's just a great place. Other than that, most of my work lately is I'm trying to catch up on private commissions. I got a little backlog because I had an event go by for a couple weeks ago, and so I got to catch up on that for the next couple of months. So I'm not really sure as far as where I go from here.
Well, I can certainly see that you've got some of your recent works up on your Facebook page as well. If you look up Londonderry Fine Art, you can find Michael on Facebook. We've got to wrap up here. We've got about 30 seconds, but I want to thank you very much for joining us here this morning. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know what? I should thank you. It's been a ball. This is great.
Definitely been a lot of fun to me.
Yeah.
We are going to be, we'll have a replay tonight after the Muskrats game. Of course, NH1 News at 6, followed by Muskrats baseball, and after that, a replay of today's show. Tomorrow, Dave Emerson in for Pat Kelly, and then I return filling in for Pat on Thursday with Mark Beauchene from Fish and Game. Thanks for joining us for Open Mic.
In 2013, there were over 3,700 DUI arrests in